comes a new challenger!
What's up YouTube, Villionaire here from Challenger TCG. It's that time of year again. The Spiritforged pre-release is quickly approaching. If you have not already done so, go check out the Riftbound official website, navigate over to the events tab, and search for local events near you known as pre-Rift events if you are interested in signing up and participating. The events will be running from February 6th to the 12th at your local game stores. Unlike the last pre-release event format, which was modified champion deck, this time around the format is sealed deck with a bit of a twist. If you are unsure what that means, don't worry, as we will be doing a full breakdown explaining what the format is, what you receive in your pre-release kit, and what the best strategies are specifically for the Spiritforged sealed format. If you are looking to take down your pre-Rift event and win it all, this is the video for you. Let's jump right into it. Challenger TCG is now powered by TopDeck.gg. TopDeck.gg is the tournament software you want to be using when hosting any tournament. It has instant pairings, a robust mobile app, integrated payments, and an easy-to-use interface, all for just $12 a month. You can get a free 14-day trial right now if you want to try out the software and use promo code CHALLENGER for an additional month free of charge. If you decide you want to keep the software, use promo code CHALLENGER25 for a 25% discount off your yearly subscription plan. If Riftbound is your first card game, you might be unfamiliar with playing sealed events in TCGs. What this means is simply that each player in the event is handed a certain amount of sealed booster packs at the start of the event that are to be opened and used to construct a Riftbound deck to play with for that tournament. The rules for deck construction in Riftbound sealed events are a bit different than the standard rules. In sealed, your deck size is reduced to just 25 cards rather than 40. Unlike in constructed, having a legend and or chosen champion card are completely optional. Instead of using a legend, you can elect not to choose one, and if you do, you will begin the game with an extra draw at the start of the game. If you also elect to have no chosen champion, you will begin the game with an additional draw as well. You are allowed to play a legend and no champion, or a champion with no legend, if you so desire. Any mix of these is fine, just be aware that if you elect not to pick one of these, you will start each game with an additional card in your hand. If you decide to play without a legend, then you can choose any 3 domains that you wish to use to build your deck. Make sure to bring runes of every domain, as you never know which domains you are going to be adding to your deck, as you cannot predict which cards you are going to pull from your booster packs. If you decide to use one of the legends that you pull, then you will use the 2 domains printed on your legend card, and you are allowed to pick 1 additional domain that you are allowed to include in your deck. Your chosen champion may be any champion unit you want to use, so long as it matches one of your domains on your legend or the 3rd domain color that you decide to use. When including signature spells in your deck, they do not have to match the legend's name like in constructed, but each card in your deck must be within your 3 domains to be eligible to include in your deck, and signature spells are dual color cards, so keep that in mind if you pull one. You will need to be using both domains in order to include it in your deck. When it comes to battlefields, you are still required to play 3 battlefields, though you can use multiple copies of the same battlefield if you pulled them. If you do not want to use a certain battlefield that you pulled, or you simply did not pull enough battlefields from your booster packs, you can elect to use a blank battlefield that can be any card basically face down, and this will just act as a battlefield in the game, but it will have no effects for either player. The final thing to note on deck construction is that there is no limitation on the amount of copies that you can have of any card in your deck. So if you pull 5 copies of a staple common like Punch First, and you want to run all 5 copies, you can totally do that. Now that you understand the basics of the sealed deck format, I will explain what makes these pre-Rift events a little bit different than the standard 6 booster pack sealed event. Each pre-Rift kit comes with 6 boosters, but one of the booster packs will be a pre-constructed pre-Rift booster pack, and will contain one of 6 different legends from the Spiritforged set, a chosen champion unit with a matching name, 6 of each ruin that matches their domains, a battlefield card, and 12 different cards from the set that are in that legend's domains. These packs will always have the same exact cards in them depending on which legend is in the pack. These packs help you jumpstart your deck building process and give you a solid foundation to build upon. Remember, you are not required to use the legend or champion from this pack in your deck if you do not want to. In the end, this pack is just one of your 6 boosters, and if you think you have a stronger deck in other domains, then don't feel like you need to make it work with the pre-Rift pack that you are dealt. Next up, we will give you a rundown on the contents of each of the potential 6 pre-Rift packs that you can open and explain the strategies of each of these legends. First up, we'll cover Lucian the Purifier. Lucian's legend reads, your equipment each give Assault. Equipment is a new card type, a subtype of gear found in Spiritforged. These gear cards can be equipped by paying a power cost found in their text box next to equip. These equipped gear give bonus might as well as bonus effects found in the effect text box at the bottom of the card. Unlike in games such as Magic the Gathering, for instance, the equipment cannot be transferred around without a specific effect to do so. So whenever deciding to put an equipment on one of your units, make sure that it's the correct one, as it will be stuck there until that unit dies. Lucian's ability lets you get additional value out of your equipments by adding an extra +1 might whenever your unit is attacking with an equipment attached to it. For each one attached to it, you will get Assault. So if you have 3 equipments, for instance, attached to one of your units, then Lucian is giving each one of those Assault, meaning you will have an additional Assault 3. This power is especially potent at the end game states when you are starting to just trade off your units to try to break through your opponent's board and go for lethal. These equipments will provide a lot of might, and you can send one unit at a time with all your equipments and burn all of your power each time you're sending a unit in fully equipped, and keep blowing out much larger units than the units that you're trading off. And ideally, that leaves you with enough power left to finish the board and score your last 2 points. The Sunken Temple is the battlefield that comes in Lucian's pack, and is a great one, especially if you can get your Lucian Merciless online with something, say, like a Doran's Blade. But equipment in general is going to allow a lot of your units to become mighty, and you'll be able to score many draws off of this battlefield ideally. It's definitely a strong one for Lucian. Speaking of Lucian Merciless, this is the chosen champion that comes in your pack, and this is actually one of the strongest units in Spiritforged. It is a very solid 3-drop, coming in at 3 might, has Weapon Master, and also the first time I conquer each turn, ready me. This is an excellent card to start with every game. If going first, you can play an equipment on turn 1 and follow up next turn with Lucian to pick it up right away. And if going second, you can just drop this guy on the board right away. And even though you may not get value from his Weapon Master, if that's what you do, he's still just a really powerful unit that is really hard for your opponent to actually deal with. This guy is hard to deal with even in constructed. So in a limited format where options of dealing with cards are extremely limited, the Lucian is just going to keep taking battlefields, readying himself, and going back to base, meaning you'll never be able to actually kill him until he finally decides to commit to a battlefield, maybe for a hold at the end game. Serrated Dirk is very good for assault, however it does not provide you with many stats on the defense. It's okay, but you'll be happy to replace this with something a little bit stronger. It gives Assault 2, and then with Lucian's Assault, of course, that's Assault 3, which is decent enough and can help you trade up on some really powerful units. Punch First is a bomb common in this set. It is absolutely one of the most ridiculous cards to have to deal with, especially given that cards like Fight or Flight and Rebuke are not found in Spiritforged, so it'll be quite hard to deal with any unit that gets a stat boost this large, and it's very easy to leave 1 energy up per turn. So if your opponent is playing body, whether that be in their 3rd color or because they're actually playing a body legend, be on the lookout for Punch First, especially being that it is a common. It is so powerful and going to be everywhere, and this card can just completely blow you out and make you lose a ton of units while still protecting their unit. With that being said, this is our Punch First, and we're super stoked to have a guaranteed copy of this if we pull Lucian. Warmog's armor is a little bit better than the Serrated Dirk in my opinion. As a body equipment, when you conquer with the Warmog's armor equipped, you gain a buff. Again, because you can't pass this around, it's not like you can use this to give a lot of different buffs. You will have to wait until that unit dies or until you can use another effect to get the Warmog's armor unequipped, but it is still a very solid card, and we're happy to have a copy in here. It still does give us Assault with Lucian, of course, so you can get some nice stats out of this. Against the Odds is a decent combat trick. Gives a friendly unit +2 this turn for each enemy unit there. I mean, this can give you like usually +2 on the defense unless your opponent for some reason decides to send a lot of units at once, or +2 on the attack if you're attacking into a battlefield where the opponent was deciding to hold with multiple units. Against the Odds is a really solid combat trick in those instances, but oftentimes in Riftbound, you're usually having combats 1v1, so this will be like a +2 for 2 at reaction speed, and that's still an okay combat trick, so against the odds is not a bad card by any means in Limited. Gem Jammer is a premium 2-drop and one we are super stoked to have access to. When you play me, give a unit ganking. Ganking is a very powerful effect in this game, and being able to give it to any unit you want is really good on a 2-drop. And in the early game, if you just need a turn 1 play, Gem Jammer is also a turn 1 play, which makes it so valuable. Even if you're not getting use out of its effect, you just need a solid amount of turn 1 plays to ensure that you're keeping point tempo throughout the game. Especially if you go first, you want as many 2-drops as you can find, so happy to have access to one of the best ones in the set. Angle Shot is a decent card at reaction speed. The more equipment that you have to move around, the better that this card's going to be, given that our pack only comes with 4 equipments, and some of which are not good unless you are attacking. I think that the Angle Shot is just an okay card, but you still might be happy to run it. It still does draw a card, and it lets you move equipments around. As we mentioned before, things like the Warmog's armor, once it's given a buff, cannot be moved around unless there's a way to move it around. Well, Angle Shot is a way to do that, and it replaces itself, which makes it a decent enough card. Recurve Bow is a 2 energy equipment in Fury. This card is just okay. Again, a lot of people should be running 2 might 2-drop units in their decks, so this is always going to have ways to deal with 2-drops. I mean, 2-drops can't even attack into you. When you attack or defend, you deal 2 to an enemy unit. So if they only have a 2 might unit, they cannot even attack into your unit if you have a bow on it. The recurve bow is not my favorite equipment, but it does a decent enough job. I would be happy to swap this out though with more Doran's blades or something if I found them in my packs. Doran's blade, on the other hand, is an excellent equipment. Doran's blade gives the best stats for its energy cost. 2 for 2 is just really strong rate. It doesn't give you any abilities outside of course the assault with your Lucian, but 2 might 4/2 is just really strong. If your Lucian picks this up on turn 2 and you're on your Sunken Temple game, you can now start using your Sunken Temple because this makes most units mighty right away unless it's a 2-drop. So really happy to have a copy of Doran's blade, and I'd be looking for more in my packs. This is a great card. The Veteran Poro is another 2-drop, not nearly as good as the Gem Jammer, as Weapon Master on a turn 1 play is not very useful because you're never going to have weapons out to pick them up, but later on in the mid game, being able to pick up a weapon without having to pay power can be useful, and he's still reasonably statted, so happy to have a guaranteed extra 2-drop of course in my pool. Laurent Blade Keeper is a 3 for 3 with ganking. This guy's just a 3 for 3 might pretty much. I mean, the ganking might come up every now and then and you might get to score an extra point, and that's pretty cool too, but for the most part, this guy's just on rate 3 for 3, nothing too special about him. Strike Down is a really good removal spell, and we're really happy to have removal spells in Limited, especially ones that can hit base, which this card can. You have to choose an equipped friendly unit. It deals damage equal to its might to an enemy unit, and then you have to detach an equipment, which, as we mentioned with cards like the Warmog's armor, can actually be a good thing if you want to start spreading buffs around. So really happy to have access to Strike Down. This is a card you're looking for more copies of as well in your boosters. And lastly, the Armed Assailant. This guy, if you watched our set review, we didn't rate him very highly. He's still kind of a bad card. However, in Limited format, this guy is really chunky, and having Weapon Master, being able to pick up a weapon, plus come in accelerated, plus whatever weapon you pick up is giving you assault, makes this guy a really huge swing. So I'm not exactly unhappy to have at least one of these guys in my top end, just as a solid finisher in the end game. This guy's usually going to come in swinging for like 8 or 9 might accelerated, which is really powerful, especially in this set where there isn't really a lot of high might units in the late game like in set 1. Next, we'll take a look at the Prodigal Explorer, Ezreal, and his kit. Ezreal is a solid legend that draws additional cards if you are able to target 2 enemy units in the same turn. This can work pretty well with cards that have Repeat, which is another new mechanic in the set, and one that Ezreal's package comes with a few copies that mention. Repeat is an additional cost that can be paid when casting a spell that allows you to copy the effects of that spell and use it an additional time. So if you were to say use a spell with Repeat that has a targeting ability and you repeat it, then you will have targeted something twice in the turn, which allows you to trigger your Ezreal. You can now exhaust him and draw an additional card, which can be really strong. Ezreal is in the Mind and Chaos domains. The battlefield for your pack is Ravenbloom Conservatory. This battlefield says when you defend here, you reveal the top card of your main deck, and if it is a spell, then you can add it to your hand. This can help you draw additional cards, and Ezreal is really good working with spells to help him draw additional cards, so a pretty good battlefield for you. The chosen champion unit that comes in is Ezreal Dashing. This unit is very hard to kill, especially in limited. Normally we would say haha dies to Falling Star, but of course there is no Falling Star that you have to worry about in Spiritforged, so Ezreal can basically just dodge all kinds of combat. He has an action ability that allow him to be moved to your base by paying a mind power, and whenever he attacks or defends, he deals damage equal to his might to an enemy unit there, so it makes it really hard to attack into this guy. He gets to deal his might to a unit, and then after he's done so, he can just pay a power to back out, back to the base, and that's really tough because your opponent is having to sacrifice units every time they want to attack him, and they're never actually dealing with this unit. So he can be really tricky, and definitely a solid champ to have access to. Called Shot is one of the best cards in the entire set of Spiritforged. Definitely not as valuable of a card in limited because you're not having access to cards like the Purple Seal or cards like the Ezreal Epic unless you pull it in your packs, which is possible. That means that Called Shot has a real cost associated to it. That's not to say that it's still not an excellent card, because it is. In limited, you don't have access to a lot of draw power, so being able to just draw 2 cards from your deck for no energy cost is very strong and can help you win some games for sure. And I'd probably play at least 1 copy of this card in any Chaos deck if I'm trying to play Sealed. Doran's Ring is a pretty weak equipment card. When you conquer, you can discard 1 and draw 1. It gives you a small might buff, but just not really doing all that much for you. You don't really have a lot of discard payoffs in this set. Overall, this card's kind of mid, and I'd be looking to probably replace it with like a 2-drop or better equipment. Frigid Touch is an example that we mentioned of, say, a repeat spell. This card is definitely a very good Ezreal spell. It's reaction speed, and it can shrink something by 2, and then if you repeat it, it shrinks it by another 2. This triggers your Ezreal by targeting something twice, so definitely a good card in Ezreal, as you get to draw a card every time you use its repeat. And it does not have a minimum 1 clause, which is really strong. This actually can make units go down to 0. Solid combat trick overall, nothing too powerful, but definitely powerful in Ezreal. The Plundering Poro is a premium 2-drop. It is one of the best 2-drops in the whole set. When I conquer, you get to play a gold gear token Exhausted. Gold is another new mechanic in the set that allows you to create a token gear that has basically Kaisa hero power on it. You can exhaust it and destroy the gear to produce an additional power. This helps you pay for power costs, which helps you ramp up into your rune deck without having to lose too much steam when you're paying power costs, so definitely a really good card. Temptation is kind of an interesting card. If your opponent just sends 1 unit to a battlefield, you might be able to use this to pull some other guys from his base to a battlefield, and then if you have a strong enough unit to swing over all those units, you've now killed a bunch of his units. Because it is a repeat card that also targets, it can be used with Ezreal to draw a card, which is probably why it's in here, though I do think the instances in which this card is going to be really strong are few and far between. You kind of have to set it up really well, and you already have to have the board yourself to be able to take advantage of forcing your opponent's units into battlefields. You don't have things like Vile Lair to keep them there, but it's kind of like a charm in some instances and can be really powerful in the right spots. Windsinger is another solid 2-drop. This card can be hidden and it gives you a gust effect, but on a body. As a 2-drop, if you're just playing it on turn 1, obviously you're not going to be able to take advantage of its ability, but it's still a 2-drop and one that has potential really high upside. It's a 2-drop that can return 3 drops or even 4 drops to the hand, so definitely a powerful card in limited. The Frostcoat Cub is very powerful doggo, especially in limited. This is a great card. This is a 3 for 3 that gives something -2 if you pay a mind as an additional cost when you play it. Definitely a strong card. It counts towards Ezreal, of course, if you target something -2 2 and then hit it with another spell, you'll get to trigger your Ezreal, which makes this really good. And if you don't have anything to target or any spells to combine with this, you can just play it as a 3 for 3, not have to pay any power, and it's just a solid on-rate body. So this is a pretty decent card in Ezreal for sure. Wages of Pain is one of the better spells to come out of the set. 3 for 3 damage and makes a gold. It's very strong, can also be hidden for just a single power, and then flipped over on your opponent's turn to deal 3 to them once they come into your battlefield. Overall, just a very versatile spell and one that we're happy to have access to. Again, this card also targets, which counts towards your Ezreal. Temporal Portal is a gear that I think has a lot of potential. You can give the next spell you play this turn repeat, so if you already have this card out and then you untap and play a very good spell, you can use its ability twice. If it targets, of course, this triggers your Ezreal, which is nice for drawing additional cards, but just being able to make multiple copies of your most powerful spell can be really strong, especially giving that to spells that didn't have repeat and weren't designed with repeat, and allow you to do things in the game that you normally wouldn't be able to do without this card. Loyal Pup is another doggo that when you're defending at a battlefield, you can move it there. So if the doggo is at the base or it's at the other battlefield that they're not attacking, is able to move in and provide his 3 might when defending. You do have to be defending, meaning he can't move to open battlefields. You have to have had a unit there. That way you are then given the defender designation, which allows him to trigger, but otherwise he's still just a 3 for 3 doggo, and that's okay too. He's just on-rate body, nothing too great. Rocket Barrage is a solid removal spell that can deal 4 damage to a unit at the base or kill a gear. Probably not going to be using the kill a gear too much in this format, but if there is something that your opponent pulls that is a really strong gear, maybe an epic level gear or something, say like if they're playing against an order deck and they have a Vanguard Armory, you're going to be really happy to have access to this card. But the first mode, the deal 4 to a unit at the base, is such a strong effect, even when it is costing you a power. And if you actually do get to 8 energy and get to double cast this with repeat, you're turning 1 card into a 2 for 1, and that's pretty strong. Killing units at the base is always really strong. There's nothing that anyone can really do about that in this set, so definitely a solid card to have access to. And if you ever do its repeat and you target 2 things, of course, this once again is another card that triggers your Ezreal. Finally, we'll talk about the Beast Below. This is a high power cost card, but it is very strong. This is one of the few late game cards in the set, and it really does have a very powerful ability. When you play me, you return another friendly unit and an enemy unit to their owner's hands. It is worth noting that you have to have a unit on your side of the field to bounce in order to get his effect. If this is the only unit on your board, you will not trigger his ability and your opponent will not have to bounce anything, so keep that in mind. But yeah, being able to target anything on your opponent's board, their biggest unit that took them so much energy to play, and then you just get to send it back to their hand and develop this massive body, can be a really big tempo swing and makes Beast Below a really strong card. Again, Beast Below as well is also another card that does target one of your opponent's units, which helps trigger your Ezreal. Next up is the Void Burrower Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is a Fury and Order legend with the ability when you conquer, you may exhaust me to reveal the top 2 cards of your main deck, and you can play one of them and recycle the rest. This card and value engine basically gives you an extra draw every turn. You get to pick one of the 2 draws and cast it. Your curve with this deck is typically trying to be pretty low so that you can always have something to cast every turn, and that's a really powerful effect. Darius in set 1 had these colors, and one of the main things that deck struggled with was card draw. Rek'Sai just having a value engine built in is a really powerful effect, and you get a lot of value with these other cards that specifically trigger and work with Rek'Sai, which we'll cover that are in these pack as well. Your battlefield is the seat of power. When you conquer here, draw 1 for each other battlefield you or allies control. So allies, of course, is referring to multiplayer. Basically what this battlefield is saying is that if you control the other battlefield, when you conquer this one, you get to draw an additional card. That's a pretty strong effect. Rek'Sai has a pretty easy time conquering both battlefields, as it's able to gain a lot of advantage and develop a lot of board thanks to its legend ability. Just be aware that your opponent can take advantage of this as well, which is why when you try to conquer both sides, you want to make sure that you have enough units to do that and be able to wall off your opponent from doing the same back to you when it's their turn. The chosen champion for this pack is Rek'Sai, the Swarm Queen. Rek'Sai is a 5 for 5, which is pretty good rate, but it does cost a power, so it's a little below rate on stats. However, it makes up for it in its ability of when I attack, you may reveal the top 2 cards of your main deck. You may play one of them and then recycle the rest. If the card is a unit, you can even play it here. So if it is given the attacker designation, you can actually bring the unit in with it, which is pretty strong. Your Rek'Sai already kind of does this, so the odds are that unless you are really deep into the game and you have a lot of energy to spend, you're probably not going to be able to trigger this and your Rek'Sai Legend ability. But the ability to, again, draw an additional card every turn, and especially the ability to pull it into combat with you, is one that should not be underestimated, and I think that this card will be really good in limited. Next up, you get a copy of Blood Rush. This is an actual constructed card that is seeing play in the regionals right now. It is such a powerful card. It lets you trade over things really easily, which lets you not only destroy your opponent's units, but then conquer over them as well and be able to trigger your Rek'Sai. So anything that gives your guys might is really nice to help you topple big units and conquer. Notably, this card does not give assault permanently. It has been errated to only give it the unit assault for the turn, so that is something to keep in mind. Bushwhack is a solid 2-mana spell that replaces the power that you spend by giving you a gear gold token. Basically is a Fury Confront, which says that all friendly units enter ready this turn. That's a pretty powerful effect, especially for a deck that's trying to conquer really fast, and if your opponent ever gets into a position where they're able to take you off the board and you don't have anything with Accelerate, this lets you get right back into the action and give everything you play that turn Accelerate. You won't use the hidden on this too much, but it's a solid spell. Next up is the Void Hatchling. This is a 2-might 2-drop that basically only works with Rek'Sai. If you would reveal cards from your deck, like say for instance with your legend ability, then you get to look at the top card first and you can recycle it. So this lets you potentially see a max of 3 cards. If say you see the top card of your deck and you decide, no, I don't want to see this in my 2 because you want to see 2 other cards, then you could just put that to the bottom. But if you also see a card that you like to see and that you want to guarantee on top of your deck, then you could just put it right back on top and then get it when you reveal your 2. This 2-drop isn't too impressive and constructed in my opinion, but it's definitely a very good card. Next up, we've got Bonds of Strength for 2 energy. This is a reaction with repeat. You can give 2 friendly units +1 might this turn. Again, might boosting effects are really good because we're trying to conquer. We're also trying to swarm the board, so effects that give us multiple might boosts, AoE might boosts, are pretty strong. Overall, this card is not super great and you'd probably want to replace it if possible, but you're not unhappy to have a copy of this in your deck if you end up that way. Next up is the trusty Ramhound, another doggo. This is a 2-drop doggo with 2 might again. Just a solid 2-drop, not too great. If you have another unit here, it gets +1, so like it gets a little bit of might upside if it's defending or attacking with another unit, which is okay. Ultimately, just a 2-drop and you're happy to have more copies of those. Next up is Eager Drakehound, a 3 for 3 that enters ready. It does cost you a power, but the ability to have Accelerate is really strong. This is basically the equivalent of playing a Legion Rearguard Accelerated cost-wise, and that's a pretty good card, but this comes in with 3 might, which is an even better card. Overall, I think that this card's going to be pretty strong and limited, being able to just sneak out wins or run over your opponent's 2-drop after it got into a point. I think that this card will shine a lot in this limited format. Next up, we've got the Void Drone. This is just a 3 for 3 that is basically blank anywhere other than Rek'Sai, but its effect is I cost 2 less to play if I'm played from anywhere other than your hand. So Rek'Sai, of course, lets you play from the top of your main deck. So this card gets to be played for just 1 energy. And if you're on your odd curve, that's pretty strong. On even curve, you're typically trying to play even costed cards, but sometimes this can work out even just if it's coming in for 1 energy, and say you want to play a Eager Drakehound or something that costs 3, say on your second turn, then this will fill the curve nicely and give you a decent amount of might. Next up is Perched Grimworm, a 4 for 5 that you can only play to a battlefield if you conquered this turn. This basically just is supposed to come out with the Rek'Sai and just start defending for 5 right away. This might not be horrendous in limited, but this card is overall pretty bad. You just don't want units like this that are really restrictive on when or how you can play them. And while 5 might for 4 is pretty impressive when you're not paying a power cost, I do think that this card's just not very good, and you'd be happy to replace this with pretty much anything else. Next up is Laurent Duelist, a 4 for 3 with Assault 2. A solid assaulter, not too great of a unit, definitely sucks when it's defending. You'd probably want to replace this one, but it's definitely better than the Grimworm. Next up is Royal Guard, a 4 for 2 that when you play me, you get to play a 2 might Sand Soldier unit token here. This card's excellent. It's 2 bodies for 4 energy, and both of them are 2 might, so it's like playing 2 2-drops, except it's in a single card, so that's just a pretty good value card. Happy to have a copy of this guy in the deck. Next up is the BF Sword, one of the best equipments in the set. It's so big, it just puts +3 on one of your guys, and that's a really strong breakpoint. That's a cleave for just a power, and it lets you trade really small units into big units or mid units into really large units. You can get a lot of value out of this in the late game if you're just like trading off Sand Soldiers and small units just coming in for 5, and trading it off on 4s and 5s. I think BF Sword really strong, even in constructed, and I'm super stoked to have one of these in my pool. Finally, you've got Drag Under. This is a 5 energy and a power removal spell at action speed. I think this card is excellent in limited. Like, it is just an unconditional kill spell. It does have to be at a battlefield, but again, you're not dealing with cards like Flash and stuff like that, so it's not like they can really run away. Emperor's Divide is pretty much the only card that can do that, so maybe be wary of that if you're playing against Calm. But otherwise, this card's going to be just an excellent kill spell. With Rek'Sai, if this is revealed for the top of the deck, it costs 2 less, which is a pretty cool upside, but honestly, this card is really strong even if you're paying full cost for it. Just a really powerful card in limited. Next up, we've got Blade Dancer Irelia. This is a Calm and Chaos legend that says when you choose a friendly unit, you may exhaust me and pay a power to ready it. When you conquer, you may pay 1 energy to ready me. This legend lets you do all kinds of tricks if you have abilities that let you choose your cards. By spending a power, you can untap them so that you can either retreat them back home, or if they have ganking, they can go to the other side of the battlefield, and by conquering, you then get to ready, and you can use your Irelia again to pull them back to safety. This ability can become kind of power intensive, especially if you're using it a lot in the early game, so make sure you use it sparingly unless you're maybe popping off with something like a Stellarcorn Herder. Otherwise, it's probably not worth it to use it too many times, but it's a very strong effect and synergizes really well with units that want to move a lot to trigger their abilities. The battlefield that you get is Treasure Hoard. When you conquer here, you can pay 1 energy to make a gold token exhausted. This helps you pay more power costs like your legend ability and is pretty decent, though your opponent can also get a lot of use out of this. Just kind of depends on what your deck is looking like as to if you want to include this or not, but it's a solid battlefield nonetheless. Your chosen champion is Irelia Graceful, a 4 energy for 4 that costs a power, and says spells that choose me cost 1 energy or 1 power less. This lets you use spells cheaper that give you the choice so that you can use your legend ability to help this move around and protect it from getting run over in battle. She's a solid chosen champion, not nearly as good as the Calm Irelia, but still a solid one to have in the deck. We already talked about Doran's Ring a little bit in Ezreal. This is just a pretty mid gear, but unlike in Ezreal, this does actually have some functionality because gears, in order to equip, they have to choose the unit. So this lets you use your Irelia ability during the turn that you equip it, which can be pretty strong. Overall, that's pretty niche case, and you'd rather have other gears that equip that are better, such as the Boots of Swiftness that's also in this pack, but Doran's Ring can get the job done if you're really running low on effects that choose your units. Next up is Feral Strength, a 2 energy reaction that gives you +2, and it has repeat, so you can spend 4 to give one of your units +4, or to give 2 of your units +2, for instance. This is a pretty strong combat trick. I'm a fan of Feral Strength, and because it can be used offensively, defensively, and in reaction to the things that your opponents are doing, I think that you're happy to have a copy of this in your pool. Lonely Poro is a premium 2-drop. When it dies by itself, you get to draw 1. This is a 2 for 2, so it's going to trade with all of your opponent's 2-cost units and even some of their 3-cost units. And when it does trade, you get to replace itself as long as it was by itself. This is a really strong effect and a great 2-drop you're really happy to have access to. Not So Fast is a solid counter spell, though there's a lot less cards in this format that require Not So Fast. However, it's still probably going to make your deck, as it is a really good ability that can help protect your units. The Treasure Hunter is another premium 2-drop. I would say the Irelia pack probably has the best 2-drops in it, giving you Treasure Hunter and Lonely Poro. These are both premium and above rate 2-drops. The Treasure Hunter can combine with Irelia to move quite a bit and play a lot of gold gear, which replaces all of the power that you spend by triggering your Irelia. So the Treasure Hunter can just get completely out of hand and be making a lot of tokens worth of power, which just help you use your Irelia for free a bunch of times in the future. Next up is the Ribbon Dancer. This is the generic 3-for-3 that comes in each of these packs. This one says when I move to a battlefield, you can give another friendly unit +1 might this turn. This is just like an okay unit. It's mostly just a 3-for-3 with a very small upside. I'm not really stoked to play this. If I find something else to replace it with, I would, but you know, 3-for-3 is still on rate. It's okay. Next up is the Royal Entourage for 3 energy. This is a 4 might cost of power, and when you play me, ready or exhaust a legend. Irelia kind of readies herself, so I'm not really sure why you would want to be using this. I mean, I guess if your opponent puts you in a position where you're not able to conquer and then you really wanted to use your Irelia again, maybe this could happen, but you're still paying 3 energy the turn that you're playing this, so then you're going to have additional energy or power left over to target your unit to be able to ready it. I'm just not really seeing too many instances where this card is going to help your game plan as Irelia, so you'd be happy to cut this for something else, though it is worth noting at least that for 3 energy, 4 might is definitely above rate. Next up is the Boots of Swiftness for 3 energy. This is a gear that gives you ganking. Ganking is such a powerful ability to be able to give to a unit, and you can just keep giving things ganking over and over with the Boots of Swiftness. If you give this to a Stellacorn herder, you are just going to really pop off and like draw your whole deck, especially in a 25 card format. Boots of Swiftness are an excellent card even in constructed right now. Really happy to have a copy of this in my sealed pool if I pull Irelia. Another card that we're really happy to have with Irelia is the Stellacorn herder. As I've mentioned a few times already in this review, the Stellacorn herder is one of the premium cards to combine with Irelia. Every time this card moves, you draw a card. You're able to make this move multiple times if you have ways to choose it with your abilities, or if you can give it like ganking with the Boots of Swiftness, untap it, go to the other side, do it again. Every time you move it, you're drawing a card. You get to just see your whole deck and all of your options and all of your good cards. The Stellacorn herder is just an absurd card. Definitely one you're happy to have access to if you get this pack. The next 2 cards, the Fae Porter and the Harpoon Squad, are both just decent 4-for-4s. They're like on rate bodies. Their effects are pretty meaningless. The Fae Porter can pay a power to move a unit you control to the same battlefield as it, so sometimes you can do some cool stuff, like if you sent your Stellacorn herder to one side and then you want to Fae Porter it to the other side, you get another trigger off your herder. That's kind of cool. You also do get to choose it with the Fae Porter, so you can use your Irelia, and if that unit survives, then it's now untapped and you can either bounce it to the other side or send it back home, maybe get some more draws again if it's a Stellacorn herder. Overall, just a 4-for-4 solid card. The Harpoon Squad, when I move from a battlefield, give me +2 might this turn. If you're able to move this out of the battlefield and then move it into the other one, it's a 6, and that's okay and might happen a few times given the way that Irelia's legend ability works, but overall this is just a mid card. I mean, if it has the Boots of Swiftness, every time it attacks from one side to the other, it gets +2, and that's okay. That's a decent synergy for the card, but overall it's a 4-for-4, which is solid rate. Finally, we have Master Bingwen, a 6-for-6 with Weapon Master. Doesn't cost you any power. This card is pretty bad in constructed, but definitely a playable limited card. I mean, it can pick up things like the Doran's Ring or the Boots of Swiftness for free. It doesn't cost you any power, even though it's a really sizable body. You might want to replace this if you get some better top end, but you're okay playing one of this at the top end in the deck, I think. The next legend on the list is the Grand Master at Arms, Jax. Jax is a legend in the Calm and Body domains, and the Grand Master at Arms says, for 1 energy, you can exhaust me and attach a detached equipment you control to a unit you control, or you can just exhaust it to attach an attached equipment you control to a unit you control. Both of these effects require equipment to be used, but they do provide very good effects for an equipment deck. If you have a lot of equipment, this is a great build around. As we've mentioned already before, equipment cannot be normally unequipped, so Jax gives you a way to do that and shift it around without spending any power at all, which is really powerful. And he also gets to bypass power costs by spending energy instead in order to equip your equipment without having to spend power, which helps you maintain a healthy amount of runes and get deeper into your rune deck. How good this is definitely going to be dependent on how many equipments you pull, but it is a pretty powerful effect if you pull a good amount of them. So if you do pull a good amount of cards in this color and you have a good amount of equipment, which this deck does come with some of them, then this is a solid choice for sure. The battlefield included is Spiritforged. While you control this battlefield, the next friendly non-token gear played costs 1 less to play. So that means that your Doran's shields become 0 or your Doran's blades become 1s. This is a pretty solid battlefield for equipment decks. You know, it gives you free energy, and that's a pretty good thing, especially if your things cost 2, now they only cost 1, and you still have that additional energy to use your Jax Legend ability to now attach that equipment right away, bumping up your unit stats, which can help you with holds or things like that, or just get more things on the board faster. So overall, a pretty solid battlefield for an equipment deck. So again, if your pool has a lot of equipment, which makes you want to go into Jax anyway, then this is definitely a great battlefield for you, and one that only you'll be able to take advantage of unless your opponent is also in a heavy equipment based deck. Jax Unmatched is our chosen champion. This is a 5/5 unit with deflect. Each equipment in your hand has quick draw. This is a very powerful chosen champion for this deck. This ability turns all of your gear in hand into combat tricks, which is really powerful, especially when combined with things like the Brutalizer to get really big stat buffs. And it also bypasses the power costs because you get to equip them right away because they all get quick draw, and that's part of the quick draw effect. So you get to save runes, which is obviously very powerful. And he's a 5/5 with deflect, which is a very sizable unit. This can always come down on turn 2 if you're going second. Just a really powerful chosen champion. You're happy to have this guy in your deck, again, if you have a lot of equipment. Doran's Shield is a 1 energy equipment for 1 that gives you tank while it's equipped, and it costs a mine to attach. This card is okay. Tank can be pretty powerful depending on what kind of board state you have, so not something to be ignored. And again, a 1-for-1 is not normally very good, but in this deck you can bypass those power costs, so that becomes pretty relevant, being able to just attach this with Jax right away for just 2 energy. So while it's not the most powerful equipment, it can definitely be a role filler. And again, tank is pretty powerful and can really screw up some of your opponent's trades. So it's not an effect that you're unhappy to have access to. Twonk is an extremely powerful card in Spiritforged. This is one of the best combat tricks in Calm. It has repeat, and for 2 at action speed you can stun an attacking unit. So this is similar to Rune Prison in set 1. However, Rune Prison allowed you to stun a unit whether it was attacking or defending, but typically Rune Prison was being used on the defense like 80 or 90% of the time, and Twonk is going to be doing the same thing, except it costs you no power and has the ability to repeat itself. So if you have 4 energy up, this thing lets you stun double units. That's going to win you most combats and screw over your opponent's turn. It's a very powerful combat trick. You're really happy you have access to this, and you'd be hoping to pull more in your packs. Apprentice Smith is a solid 2-drop, especially if you get a lot of gear in your deck. If not, I mean, it's still okay as a 2-for-2. As we've mentioned, you want 2 drops, so you're happy to have access to one that can sometimes draw you a card. The more equipment that you get, the better your Jax deck already is, so the more equipment you get, the better this card is. And at its floor, it's an on-rate 2-drop. Brutalizer, as we mentioned, is a gear that can equip, and if it was attached this turn, I get an additional +2. Normally you're going to want to equip this using your legend right before you're about to swing to make sure that this is giving you max stats. Otherwise, 2-for-1 is pretty bad value, but if you're getting to get +3 because it was attached this turn, that's really good value, especially as we mentioned as well with your Jax chosen champion. The Brutalizer comes down and becomes a +3 at reaction speed, which is a really powerful combat trick. So if you have access to more of these in your packs, you'd probably be happy to pick up a couple more. Doran's Blade, as we mentioned in Lucian's pack, again is just one of the best on rate 2-for-2 equipments, and again with this deck we're not paying power costs. And with our chosen champion, we have access to this as a combat trick that doesn't cost us any power whatsoever to just get +2 permanently as a combat trick at reaction speed. Really powerful card, and you're happy to have as many of these in your equipment decks as you can find. Sea Monkey, another premium 2-drop. This is a really good 2-drop that came in body this set. 2 for 2 at a baseline, but you can pay an additional 1. So let's say you're going second and you have 3, you can pay additional 1, and this guy actually comes in with a buff. So you can use it as a 2-drop when going first, or if it's past the first turn, you can invest a little extra energy to make this guy even better. Just a really good 2-drop all around. You're happy to have more copies of this if you can find some. The Hex Drinker is a 2 energy for +1 and deflect equipment. Deflect is definitely not as good in sealed as it is going to be in constructed, but if you are facing a deck that has a lot of ways to target, like say Ezreal, then you'd be happy to have a Hex Drinker versus that deck. It's definitely not a bad combat trick whatsoever with your Jax, or just a good equipment to have access to, but you won't be getting as much value out of this as you will in constructed. So it's a solid equipment, but you're not super excited to have access to too many of these. Strike Down, again, an excellent card that we mentioned. With Jax, this is going to find its home really easily. It lets you deal damage to a unit anywhere. You have to detach equipment, but no big deal. Jax lets you attach them for energy, so you're not actually having to spend a lot of power when you're detaching. So this is even more powerful than it is in Lucian, and it's already really powerful in Lucian. This is just an excellent removal spell, and you'd be happy to find more of these as well. Navori Scout is an excellent unit. 4 for 4 with deflect is really good rate. Doesn't cost you any power whatsoever. You can start equipping this guy and he just becomes a nightmare for the opponent to deal with, unless they have ways to outmight him with their own equipments or things like Punch First. So pretty great card all around. Definitely happy to have a copy of this guy in your pool. The Dauntless Vanguard is like a Dead Bloom Predator, but cut in half. It's a 4 for 4 that only costs you 1 power, and you can play it to an occupied battlefield. This is pretty powerful. It's just basically pseudo accelerate, and it's on a really good on-rate body. You unfortunately can't really equip this guy unless you have your Jax unmatched out, so that you can like start throwing reaction speed equipment on him. But even then, it's still just a solid play in the early game to just kind of gain some tempo on points and eat some of your opponent's material for relatively cheap. So while this isn't a super excellent card, I like having access to 1 or 2 of these in my sealed pool. Combat Chef is a 5 for 5 with Weapon Master, just a solid mid-range body, doesn't cost you any power, and can become pretty reasonably statted. Weapon Master is not really that impressive though in Jax, because you're not really paying these power costs anyway, and like an extra energy is not a really big cost to be able to do this. But if you are going second and you start with an equipment and then this guy on your second turn and he can just pick that up right away, that's pretty good tempo. So that's like the best case scenario with him. He's pretty mid otherwise though, and you'd be happy to replace this guy. Finally, we've got Guardian of the Passage. This is a 6 for 6 that when I hold, you can return a unit from your trash to your hand. This is a pretty strong value engine, and while it's definitely a little slow for constructed, I think that this guy can help you run away with games in limited, especially if you can stack him up with a lot of equipment and keep him protected. If you get to trigger this even once or twice, this guy's already given you a ton of value, and 6 for 6 with no power cost is definitely a solid rate. So not a horrible card, not a great card, but I'm happy to have like one of this in my top end in these colors. The last of our Spiritforged legends is the Chem Baroness, Renata Glask. She is in the Mind and Order domains, and Renata says, when you or an ally, which of course we are in single player, so we're not going to have any allies, hold, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. Her second ability reads, while your score is within 3 points of the victory score, your gold gain an additional 1 energy. This means that when your gold exhaust and kill themselves in order to make a power, they are also making an energy as well, so you'll get 1 energy and 1 power for every gold that you spend. While this legend is currently a little bit difficult to get value out of in constructed, I could see Renata getting some value in limited because you're probably going to be able to hold with this deck a lot more. Unfortunately, I don't think that her payoffs are very powerful. Like normally in constructed, you're trying to use this to amass a bunch of gold so that you can start pulling off a bunch of really expensive plays like Bellows Breath Watcher or just triggering a bunch of time warps. But in limited, you're going to only have access to whatever comes in this pack plus the random cards that you get out of your packs, and so she will be a little more difficult to get true value out of. But if you get a lot of expensive cards to play or a value engine that you'll be able to draw a few cards with so that you'll have enough in your hand to actually spend a lot of this gold on your turns and produce a sizable board, then I could see Renata having some play. Her battlefield is the Power Nexus, which is pretty solid for Renata. It's when you hold here, you can pay 4 power to gain a point. This is definitely an excellent way to spend Renata's gold. So if you're accumulating a bunch of gold from these holds and you don't really know what you're going to pay, how you're going to use it for a payoff, this is the way to do it. Your opponent is able to take advantage of this as well though, and if they are ahead of you in the race, this can become a detriment to you. They'll always be threatening to hold this. They don't care if they don't have gold or power, just they'll spend 4 runes back to take the final point and win the game. So the card can be a double-edged sword, but it's a very powerful card with Renata and gives you a way to make all this power that you're generating actually matter. Definitely a solid battlefield for Renata. The chosen champion that you have access to is Renata Glass Industrialist. This is a 4/4. She does cost an order power and your tokens enter ready. Now this deck does have a few token generation cards in it, and all of your gold gear are also token cards, so your gold gear will come in readied while this is on the board, and that's okay if you really needed to spend an additional power cost that turn. You'll be able to use your gold right away. That can give you some tempo. It's not insanely powerful or anything, but 4/4 is decent rate, so this is a decent chosen champion. And if you get a lot of like Sand Soldier generation, this can be an excellent chosen champion. But typically if the only tokens that you're generating are gold and not actual units, she's just an okay unit. Chemtech Cask is a gear that for one says when you play a spell on your opponent's turn, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. You do have a few spells that are hiddens or action speed in this pool, and so if you get this in an early turn and then you're able to use a bunch of action speed cards, this can generate you a lot of value and a lot of gold. It is a pretty dead draw in the mid to late game though, especially if you've already used some of those tricks. You definitely need a lot of action speed cards to take advantage of this, and even then I'm not sure that the payoff is really worth it, so this would probably be one of the cards I would be looking to replace with something else. Cloth Armor, on the other hand, is a very powerful gear. This is an equipment gear. It has quick draw, as we mentioned, which is reaction. When you play it, you can attach it. So this, for one, can just attach to one of your units and give it shield 2. So it doesn't give it any base stats, but it does give it shield 2, which is +2 while defending. And for 1 energy, a +2 combat trick that also gives it a permanent +2 whenever it defends for the rest of the game, or until it's destroyed, is very powerful. It's just a really powerful combat trick. It's a really powerful gear, and even if they are able to deal with that gear, because this is an equipment, you'll still have access to equip it again, and you can use some of your gold tokens to do that if you're not trying to spend runes. So overall, I think Cloth Armor is a solid card for the deck. Plundering Poro is a premium 2-drop, one of the best 2-drops in the whole set. A 2/2 that when I conquer, you get to play a gold gear token exhausted. Again, just gold is all that Renata wants anyway, and this is just a really solid 2/2 that you'd be happy to play anyway because you just need 2-drops. But the payoff and upside of this guy is just really strong. He's a gold generator, everything you want in this deck. Honest Broker is another premium 2-drop for this deck, a 2/2 that when it dies, it also creates a gear token. So both of your 2-drops in this deck are just generating you a lot of gold that can help you with Renata in the late game, or even just to pay power costs in the mid game so that you're able to get deeper into your Ruin deck in the late game. Just a really solid 2-drop. Happy to have more of these. Blood Money is an action speed spell that says kill a unit at a battlefield with 2 might or less. If it was an enemy unit, play a gold gear token exhausted. If it was a friendly unit, play 2 gold gear tokens exhausted. This is a solid removal spell. It can kill any of your opponent's 2-drops or even 3-drops if they have 2 might, and it makes gold for you. If you do that, it makes even more gold if you kill your own things. So if for whatever reason you really needed 2 gold gear and you have a unit that's going to be traded over anyways, and your Blood Money doesn't have any good targets on your opponent's board, then you can always fire this off on your own stuff too, just to generate gold. But typically you're going to want to use this as a spell against enemy units so that you get a lot of value out of this. Use it as a kill spell, and 2 energy is just not a lot to hold up, so this is a really powerful early game spell. Especially Wages of Pain we already covered in Ezreal, but again, this is a premium spell in Mind, 3 energy to deal 3 damage to a unit. and play Gold Gear token exhausted at action speed is just excellent. You can hide this, which is really good too, and you can always pay power with your gold that you're generating to hide this, which can help you get deeper into your Ruin deck. And it generates gold itself, which just helps you with Renata later on in the game. So overall, just a really powerful spell for this deck. The Pickpocket is a 3-for-3 unit that says when you play me, you can kill a gear with energy cost no more than 1 if you do play a Gold Gear token exhausted. So if your opponent is playing small gear like cloth armors or any of these other 1-cost gears that we mentioned earlier in these other packs, this can get some value. It also could just kill gold tokens, which isn't terrible, but not super great. A 3-for-3 body is respectable though, so you might play this anyway just because it's a on-rate body and has some upside in a good amount of matchups. Guards is a 3 energy hidden spell that says play a 2 might Sand Soldier unit token and you can pay an order rune to ready it. Using this from hidden is kind of interesting. It just can give you an extra 2 might body, which can be pretty good. And again, hidden is really easy to pay for us because we're always generating gold with this deck quite often by holds or by effects. So this unit is below rate if you're paying 3 energy for this, but if you're just paying a power for this, it's pretty decent. And giving it the ability to accelerate is pretty strong. It can like close out a game if you just really need an accelerated unit to take the other side of a battlefield or something, or just to push 2 more might on your board on your turn. It's not a great trick, but it's okay. The Drop Border is an excellent card, a 4-for-4 when you play me if you control 2 or more gear ready me. This is a payoff card for generating gold if you don't really have a lot of ways to use your gold until the later game. This unit's really great because having those 2 gold out means that it comes in readied, just gives itself accelerate basically, and it's a really well statted unit, so pretty happy to have a copy of Drop Border in the deck. Maybe even would pick up a few more of these, especially if you have a lot of gold generation. The Sand Shifter is a 5 energy for 6 might at cost 2 power, and when you play me you can kill an enemy unit with 3 might or less. I think that this unit might be a bit of a menace in limited. I think that 5 for 6 is obviously really strong rate. 2 power is steep, but again, when you consider that this is a deck that generates a lot of gold, there's a chance that you're not even going to have to spin any of your runes back into your rune deck to do this. And if that's the case, then 5 for 6 is excellent, especially when it's killing a body on your opponent's side of the board. This doesn't care where the unit is, whether it's at the base or at the home. So this is a really big tempo swing. Putting 6 might on your board and removing up to 3 might from your opponent's board is quite a bit, especially when this can come down as early as turn 2 when you're going second. I don't think that this card is very good in constructed right now, but I think that it'll shine in limited and be a very powerful card. The Glass Mixologist is another solid card, 5 for 5 that costs a power, and Death Knell, you may play a unit with cost no more than 3 and no more than 1 power from your trash, ignoring its cost. This card just gives you a ton of value. 5 for 5 is solid stats, and when it dies it gives you more stats, assuming that you have something in your discard pile already to get value out of this. So obviously you don't really want to be losing units, but the odds are that you're going to lose a unit or 2 at some point in the early game so that you can get points with them. And so if that happens, the Glass Mixologist is really good rate for its stats. You're already getting 5 for 5, and while it does cost a power, once you pull out another 2 or 3 might from your discard pile and another body from this as well, then you've gotten 2 cards for the cost of 5 and a power, and that's really good rate. Finally, the Eminent Benefactor is a 6 energy for 5 might that says when I hold, play 2 gear gold tokens exhausted. This guy is not really what I want in my top end. He's a little understated, and again, the 2 gear gold, especially once you're getting to like turn 3 and beyond, are not super crazy, especially since you have to hold, meaning that you're not even getting value out of this until like turn 4 at best, and even then those gear golds are coming exhausted unless you have like your chosen champion in play. So then you're not really getting value out of those until the 5th turn of your game, and that's not really where I think I want to be with a card like this. I'd rather just play some better statted units, and while it doesn't cost a power, again, it's just not really impressive and understated, so not a great card. I'd be looking to replace this with something else in my top end. Now that all the pre-rift packs are explained, we will move on to the final part of the video, discussing what cards you should be on the lookout for in your booster packs to add into your deck, breaking down the top 3 commons, uncommons, and rares in each domain. Keep in mind that these lists are not based on how good the card is in the constructed metagame, only how good it is to pull in the context of only playing with Spiritforged cards in a sealed limited format. For the top 3 commons, coming in at number 3, we have Bushwhack. Bushwhack is a very powerful spell. Being able to give your units accelerate is a really powerful effect. It does require other cards to be good. It needs to have units to give accelerate to, but the card is still really powerful for what it does. Blood Rush is coming in as your number 2 most powerful common. We already explained how good of a combat trick this is. This will just allow you to trade over most things for a very low investment cost, and that's really good. Being able to get 4 might out of just 2 energy is so strong and lets you make really good trades. And coming in at number 1 for the commons is Gem Jammer. We've already mentioned this is one of the best 2-drops in the set. Ganking is a really powerful ability, so a 2-drop that can just be a 2 for 2 when it needs to be, or in the late game act as kind of a spell that comes with a body that allows you to give ganking to one of your units, is just really strong. For the top 3 uncommons, we have Sudden Storm coming in at number 3. This is a really strong removal spell if you are given the defender designation. Remember that your opponent is not an attacker unless you actually have a combat happening, which means that you have a unit there defending at least at the start of the combat. And so that is when Sudden Storm will actually be able to deal 4. Otherwise it's only dealing 2, and it's a much worse removal spell, but it's still okay even if it's just dealing 2 to like a 2-drop. Removal is hard to come by and limited, so you'll be happy to have some amount of these. Number 2, we have Minotaur Reckoner. This card is really strong for its stats and allowing your opponent to not be able to pull back material, especially if you have really strong bodies or a lot of equipment. Making all of your bodies really strong basically forces your opponent to leave their units in the battlefields and let you trade over them or crash into them. And it just doesn't allow them to make the combats the way that they want them to be. And that can be really strong, especially since this guy doesn't cost any power. He's just a really strong on-rate body that messes with the tempo of the game. Finally, we got Blast Corps Cadet at number 1. This is a solid 2-drop, and most of the time this will just be a 2 for 2. But every now and then, if you draw this in the late game, this can be a powerful spell that comes with a body that gets to deal damage to something at a battlefield, and that's really strong too. We're always on the hunt for more 2-drops, and ones that actually have abilities that can matter in the late game or give you additional value beyond just the body are always what we're looking for. For our top 3 rares, we have Piercing Light coming in at number 3. This is just a great removal spell. It's very flexible because you can repeat this. You can end up dealing 2 damage to 4 different units and spread out the damage all over the place, or you can deal like 4 and 4 or 4-2-2. Overall, this just lets you remove a lot of might from the board, and it's really hard for your opponents to play around, even more so in limited formats, where decks are just a lot more clunky, and you're playing units that are typically below rate compared to constructed. This card is just really powerful. Coming in at number 2, we got Ferris Forerunner. It was hard to put this card at number 2 because this is just one of the most powerful cards in all of the game right now. It's one of the strongest cards in the set, and for a top end card, it is just absolutely insane being able to put essentially 12 might worth of bodies into play for just 6 energy. But the number 1 card is actually just a little bit better because it is a chosen champion that we can start with in every single game. So that's the only reason that this card is in number 2, but it's a very close 1 and 2, and you'll be super excited to play as many Forerunners as you can pull. And coming in at number 1, we've got Draven Vanquisher. This is just the best chosen champion in all of the set, and you're really happy to have this turn 2 every single game. So if you are in Fury and you pull this guy, just make this your chosen champion. You'll be happy that you did. It's just one of the strongest cards in the whole set. It can become a 6 on the attack, a 6 on the defense. It generates gold to pay for its own abilities. It doesn't cost you any power to come into play on turn 2. Just overall an absurd card, and especially when you consider that because it is a chosen champion, this can always start in play every single game, so you always have this in your hand to drop on turn 2. It's just so strong. Next up, we'll cover body, top 3 commons. Number 3, we've got Doran's Blade. We've already mentioned this card twice in this video, as you get it in both of your packs in body, and we're really happy that you do because this is just one of the best equipments in the whole set, especially just being on rate 2 for 2, and it gives you a lot of might for a really low energy investment. So happy to have Doran's Blade, especially if you're an equipped deck. Coming in at number 2, we've got Sea Monkey. We've talked about how flexible this guy is, just a really solid 2-drop, a 2 for 2 that can become bigger if you draw it in the later game or if you're going second is really good. Not a lot of buff synergy in this set, but even just printed as it is, this card is just really strong in common. Coming in at number 1, it should be no surprise, but it is Punch First. This card is one of the best combat tricks in the whole set. We're really happy to play as many of these as we can. This just makes your unit near unkillable and almost guarantees a win in combat, which will destroy your opponent's units as well. And it's just really hard for your opponents to play around this card, even if they do have enough might to get over it. Like, by giving your things +5, you're going to be taking so much material down with your guy that they're not feeling good swinging into a punch first, whether they're winning the combat or not. For the uncommons, at number 3, we have Warmog's Armor. As we mentioned, this is just a cheap equipment that if you have ways to move it around can give a lot of buffs to a lot of different units. But even if it's just giving +2 to one unit, that's pretty strong, especially considering it only costs 1 energy. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Fey Dragon. This unit has a great amount of stats for its cost. 7 for 7 is great, but because it can also buff itself, it's coming in at an 8, which is actually above rate. And then you're also able to give more might to up to 3 other units. And if for whatever reason you have ways to spend those buffs, then you're getting gold generated on top of that, which is just so much value. You get so much material and cards and power off of this card that it's just a great top-end card. Obviously, it is a expensive card, so you know, if you're not playing a deck that has a easy time getting to the late game, sometimes this might come down and it's going to be a little clunky. But overall, I think that this thing is just such a powerful might swing on the board and gives so much value that you've got to play some of these if you pull them. And number 1, we've got Strike Down. We've already talked about how good Strike Down is. A removal spell that can hit at base is what you want. You need equipments to be able to trigger this, but that shouldn't be hard, especially in body, to find a couple of equipments that are good. Combines well with things like Warmog's Armor to detach it and be able to attach it somewhere else to buff something else. Overall, excellent removal spell. You'll be happy to play a bunch of these. For the rares in body, at number 3, we've got Trinity Force. This card will pretty much take up all your energy on turn 2 to play, but past that turn you will have access to this +2 that is always threatening double points, so it's a menace for your opponent to deal with. Scoring double points can help you come back, especially if you ended up going second, and just such a powerful effect to put on something that you can keep giving out over and over and over. And if your opponent doesn't have a way to deal with gear, then they're in for a bad time. Another really powerful rare and limited is Yone. This is coming in at number 2. Being able to conquer a battlefield and then also snipe material off your opponent's board is just so strong. Your opponent can play around this by like moving things to the other battlefield and things like that, but typically they're going to keep something at their base and this guy will be able to just eat it. Also having Weapon Master and pretty solid stats all around, and if he just is able to use his effect once or twice, like he's just going to run away with the game. And at number 1 we have Lucian Merciless. We've already talked about how good of a chosen champion this unit is, but this is just a solid unit all around. You definitely would want to pair him with a equipment deck if possible to take advantage of his Weapon Master, but even just as a 3 for 3 that can constantly ready himself, he's already good enough by himself. Next up, we've got Chaos. For the commons, coming in at number 3 is Called Shot. This card is absolutely insane, and even though it's harder to pull off in limited for a lot of value, even if you're having to spend 2 power on this, like you're getting to turn 1 card into 2, and that's really good, especially like in the late game when your power doesn't really matter as much because you don't have a lot of big cards that you need to be casting or combination of cards. And since you're spending power anyway, even if you did have combinations of cards that you need to cast, you can cast one of them and then use the power that you've tapped to turn this into 2 different cards. And the card selection, of course, is so good. I mean, this card, we've talked about this card to death on this channel already. Just an excellent card. You would be happy to have some of these for sure. Coming in at number 2, Overzealous Fan. This is just a fantastic 2 for 2 2-drop, and if you're just playing this as a 2-drop early, that's fine. But even late game, this just turns into a 2-mana fight or flight that you get to play at a battlefield that also provides you with 2 might. If your opponent doesn't end up going to that battlefield, you still have 2 more might worth of units on the board, and that's really strong. I mean, this guy's just a menace. Coming in at number 1 is another 2-drop, and this guy is even more of a menace, especially if he gets to ride for a few turns and move around quite a bit. This is Treasure Hunter. Your opponent pretty much needs to answer this, and he's not that hard to answer because it is only a 1 might unit. But if your opponent is not able to deal with it, or let's say you're Irelia and you just get to untap this and send it back home and then move it around some more next turn, it's going to produce so much treasure, and then all your power costs basically become fake, and that's really good, especially on a turn 1 play. For the uncommons, coming in at number 3, we've got Beast Below. A 7 for 8 is way above rate. Even paying 2 power for this, you don't mind because you're returning things from the board to return your opponent's best play. If they have something really terrifying like a Ferris Forerunner or a Fey Dragon or just something really big, this can get rid of it while developing 8 might on its own, so it's just a really powerful tempo swing. Coming in at number 2 is Cull. This is a 1 for 1 equipment that lets you make a gold every time it conquers. This being able to refund you, the power that it costs to equip is pretty cool. And if you're playing this in a deck where you have ways to equip it without needing to pay power, that's even better. This can get you a lot of gold generation, depending on if it's on a unit that you'll get to keep and then conquer with again at a later point. Then you've gotten a lot of value out of this. Just a really solid early game play. At number 1, we've got the Boots of Swiftness. This is easily one of the best uncommons in the whole set. Being able to give ganking to a unit is crazy. Being able to give it permanent ganking and +2 might is really crazy. It's just such a strong equipment, and I would be happy to have 1 or 2 copies of this in any deck that I can play them in. For our top 3 rares, we've got Fizz Trickster coming in at number 3. Just an excellent body that casts a spell and gives you the energy to cast it from your graveyard. You can pull off all kinds of tricks depending on what you have in your grave. There's a lot of good 2 energy spells. If you are doing it on your turn, you need to have a spell that you can use proactively, but I'm sure that you'll be able to find plenty of those, whether it be firing off a Punch First to conquer a battlefield, or something like a Strike Down or a Wages of Pain to remove something from the board. Coming in at number 2, we've got Edge of Night. This is an equipment that you can hide, so for a single power, this can give you +2 swing on the defense, and then it also just gives you this permanent 2 might equipment, which is really strong. That's really great rate. Happy to have Edge of Night in our deck. It's really versatile and a great equipment card. Coming in at number 1, we've got Switcheroo. This card is just an absurd combat trick. This is one of the combat tricks that I honestly wish they didn't really print because of how much it invalidates really big might units like Mundo or things like that. But in this format, this is just going to be an absolute house, especially against decks with like Punch First. This is one of the best answers to Punch First. They give +5 to their guy, and then you take their big might swing and give it to your smallest guy, and this just creates such a big might deficit on the battlefield that most decks are not able to come back from it. Just such an insane card, Switcheroo. Next up, we've got Order. For the top 3 commons, we've got Sandshifter coming in at number 1. We already mentioned how good of a card this is. Just coming down and taking something off the board while providing so much might is just really powerful. Ideally, you have enough gold generation in your deck that this power cost isn't even that steep for you, but honestly, just with the amount of might swing that this puts on the board, I think that this is just such a strong card in common. At number 2, we've got Royal Guard. We already mentioned how good this card is as well. Just 2 bodies out of 1 card. Really strong. Lets you take double points and things like that. Just overall, really powerful card that doesn't cost you any power for multiple bodies worth of cards. At number 1, we've got Honest Broker. We already mentioned how good of a 2-drop this is. We are happy to play Honest Broker as many as we can pull, most likely, unless your packs are just absolutely flooded with them and you feel like you already have enough 2-drops. You'll be happy to play this card. For top 3 uncommons, we've got Vanguard Armory coming in at number 3. This card can just completely run away with a game if it rides. Obviously, it is costing 7, so this is not coming down for quite a bit, but in limited, there's even less gear removal, especially in main decks that you're going to deal with compared to constructed. And the format's most likely slower because decks are just a little more clunky, so if this card gets to ride for enough turns, you can just completely overwhelm your opponent with might and with units, and you're constantly threatening double points every single turn because you're constantly throwing so many bodies onto the board. This card is already good enough to be seeing constructed play, so I will definitely not be surprised to see this be a menace in limited tournaments. At number 2, we've got the BF Sword. We've talked about how good of an equipment this is. It's just a really massive stat boost, and that is just really powerful, especially in limited. Making your 2-drops able to trade on 5 might units is really powerful, and you never lose this, so then you pay another power, give +3 to something else. It's just so much consistent might on the board, even when you just have one of these in play. And finally, at number 1, we have Drag Under. As we mentioned, this card is just really powerful removal. It's unconditional removal, doesn't care about the might, doesn't care about the cost. It does have to be at a battlefield, but that's not that hard to do, especially in this format. There's not a lot of ways to leave the battlefield at reaction speed, like flash out or things like that. There's only really 1 card in the whole set that does that. Having access to a removal spell that can just take anything off the board that otherwise you would not be able to address because its might is too big or it has too many equipments on it or whatever the case is, Drag Under will take care of it for you. And for our top 3 rares, at number 3, we have the Trove Golem. This is one of the largest units in the whole set. 8 for 9 is above rate, and it gives you 4 gold tokens, which probably don't matter that much at that stage of the game, but the massive body is just really powerful. There is not really a lot of large units in the set, and this is actually the largest unit, 9 might, in the whole set, so it's going to be really hard to trade over this guy. And if you actually get to cast this unit, it's going to be quite a massive task for your opponent to remove this from the board unless they have premium removal like Drag Under. Coming in at number 2, we have the Under Titan. Even if you cannot take advantage of this card's ability with Rek'Sai, this card is just a powerful finisher, and there's not a lot of really good finishers in the set, especially in the limited format. So if you can play this card and just +2 your whole board, that can give you all the might that you need to take both sides and close the game from 6 to 8. And so that's exactly what you want out of a strong card like this. I'd be happy to play Under Titans if I find some. The more cards like Royal Guard that you have and things that spawn tokens, then this card gets even more value. And at number 1, we've got Rek'Sai the Swarm Queen. This is just a really good chosen champ. It gives you a lot of value. It does have to have an attacker designation to trigger its effect, but being able to rip an extra card from the top of your deck every turn and play it is really strong. It can give you a lot of value if it gets to ride and your opponent doesn't have ways to deal with it. And being able to move the might straight into your battlefield can help you deal with way larger units than you'd be able to deal with otherwise. So just a powerful card overall. Next up, we've got Calm. For the top 3 commons in Calm, we've got Desert's Call. This is just a premium 2-drop card. It's a 2-drop on a spell at worst, and if you have 4 energy, you can repeat this to make an additional unit. So this is one of those cards that's giving you multiple cards out of it for a single card, and that's a lot of value. And it's flexible, so if it's turn 1, you just don't mind playing this as a 2 for 2, and that's good enough. You need 2 drops in your deck anyway, so really powerful card. Number 2, we've got Lonely Poro. We've already talked about how good this card is as well. A 2 for 2 that when it dies alone draws you a card. That's excellent. Often your 2 drops that you play in the early game do end up getting traded over, and they are by themselves. You're happy to take that trade. You're happy to turn one of these guys into a point and then draw a card afterwards. At number 1, we have Thwonk, just one of the most powerful combat tricks in the whole set. It costs you no power whatsoever to invalidate 2 of your opponent's units swinging in. It's just really strong defensive spell, and you'd be happy to have a few of these. This is just going to win you games on its own too. If you're holding from like 7 to 8, being able to just invalidate all of your opponent's large swings, it's just so strong. At top 3 uncommons, we've got Emperor's Divide coming in at number 3. This was the spell I had mentioned earlier that is kind of like Flash. However, you can only react with it at hidden. Otherwise, it is just action speed, but it lets you move any number of friendly units at a battlefield to their base. So if you just need to retreat an entire army out of the battlefield because you had a hold go wrong, or your opponent just had way too many combat tricks or punch first or something, and now you're like, man, I'm going to lose my whole board. Well, if you just pay 2 energy or you play this from your hidden zone, actually you get to save your whole board, kind of like a super flash, and that's really strong. It is mostly a reactive card and not a very proactive card, so keep that in mind. You don't want too many of these, but it is such a strong card to have access to. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Brutalizer, an excellent equipment. It gives you so much stats the turn that you equip it, and if you have ways to give it to units at quick draw or be able to trade multiple units off in a turn and keep equipping it over and over, then you're going to get multiple +3s out of this, and for just something that came down for 2 energy, that's just so much value. And at number 1, we've got the Stellacorn Herder. We've talked about this card to death as well, but this thing costs no power. It's going to move around all day and draw you a ton of cards, especially if you have ways to ready it and move it around or retreat it back to the base. Then you're just drawing so many more cards. And if you're playing this in Irelia, it's a true nightmare. You'll almost never be able to deal with this, and your opponent will just draw infinite cards, assuming that they have enough ways to target it. There's no Falling Star in this format, and there's just a lot less removal in general than in set 1. And it's going to win you multiple games if it gets to ride and draw like 3 or 4 cards. Coming in our top 3 rares, at number 3, we've got Heart of Dark Ice. This is a very powerful card that does target for Irelia. Speaking of Irelia, even if it's not being used for Irelia triggers, just giving +3 to a unit every single turn to crash in with can be really strong. Reading this and seeing its cost, it might read a little clunky, but I do think that if you have this on your board, it's just going to be a nightmare for the opponent, especially if you're able to go wider than them. You're just threatening so much more might on every crackback, and that can accumulate into a pretty good advantage. At number 2, we've got Janna Savior. This is fight or flight, but on a body. It also has this cute little heal effect, and maybe every now and then that'll come into play, but I doubt it'll come up very often. But hey, fight or flight on a body is so strong. This is just going to be an excellent combat trick to use against opponents. And at number 1, we've got Guardian Angel. Zhonya's Hourglass was a complete menace in set 1, and this card is no different. Of course, it does have a power cost associated with it, so that does come into play unless you are like Jax or something and you have a way to bypass that, or you have Weapon Masters to pick it up. So there are ways to not have to pay the power for this, but even paying the power for this, like Zhonya's Hourglass didn't give you a +1 might boost either, and this does, so I think it more than makes up for it. This card is just really powerful, being able to get use out of your units, especially if it's a very large unit. Being able to get multiple uses out of it is just so strong. And finally, we have the Mind cards, the top 3 commons in Mind. Coming in at number 3, we've got Cloth Armor. We've already talked about how good this card is. It just doesn't cost you any power to equip this because it's going to come down at reaction speed, and it gives you a +2 buff, which is normally something that costs you like 2 energy. Granted, you can only be doing this defensively and not offensively, and the stat boost that it gives you is also only defensive, but for 1 energy, that's such a low investment, and it's just so much stats that this gives you, and a piece of material that you can constantly keep using even after you lose the unit. It's just such a strong card. Number 2, we've got Wages of Pain. Excellent removal spell. Deal 3 and make a gold is so strong. Being able to hide this makes it even stronger. It's really flexible and just an excellent card you want multiple copies of. Coming in at number 1, we've got Plundering Poro. We've already mentioned this is just one of the best 2-drops in the whole set. Really happy to have multiple copies of this. Makes gold, and it's great rate, 2 for 2, solid card. Top 3 uncommons, we've got Drop Border coming in at number 3. A 4 for 4 is already great rate. If this thing gets to come in untapped though, because you have 2 gears, then it's really, really good. You can equip gears to it, of course, too. So if you have like a bunch of equipment, then it can come down untapped. You can suit it up and then it can go crash into huge things. Just overall a really strong card. And number 2, we have Production Surge. This is a decent payoff if you're in mechs, but even if you're not in mechs, 4 and a power for 3 might and a card is really solid rate, especially in limited. Of course, if you do have mechs and you get to only play this for 2 energy, that's really, really strong. At number 1 in uncommon, we have Rocket Barrage. Deal 4 to a unit at a base is really, really good. We don't have a lot of base removal in the set to begin with, and the fact that you can repeat this and actually kill 2 units, making this a 2 for 1, is really strong, even if it does cost you 8 and 2 power, which is an obscene amount of energy. But if you're killing 2 things off the board or dealing 8 to something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to kill if not, that might be worth it. And the fact that this is also flexible and can kill gears, like really menacing equipments like BF Sword, or like we already mentioned, the Vanguard Armory is a high value target for the gear removal. So the fact that this is removal that is also flexible enough to answer equipment, especially in a set that's all based in equipment, I think that this card is really strong in limited. For top 3 rares, we have Ezreal Dashing. We already mentioned this card's just kind of hard to deal with in limited. Even if it is a little power intensive, if you have ways to generate gold, or you're just a pretty low curve deck, this card is just going to keep trading off on units and dealing its damage, especially if you're able to like equip to it, because it deals damage equal to its might. So if you're able to put like +2 or +3 on it, then it's dealing with pretty much everything in the set, and that's just really hard to deal with, especially when it can consistently at action speed go back to base after it's taken something off of your opponent's board. You can potentially just get way more value out of this card than you're supposed to. At number 2, we've got Bellows Breath, an excellent AoE spell that can clear multiple 2-drops or Sand Soldier tokens. Really powerful overall. The fact that you can repeat it and spread the damage all over the place is also really good. And coming in at number 1, we've got Card Sharp. Just an excellent 3 for 3. Gives you a gold. If your opponent takes a gold, you get another gold. It doesn't read all that crazy or all that swingy, but the value that you get out of this card for such an on-rate body is just pretty crazy, honestly. And with that, that's going to be the end of our pre-rift video. I hope that this was helpful information for you, and I hope that you can now go out and win your pre-release event. Let us know in the comments if that's what happens for you. Let us know if you think we got anything wrong, or if you disagree with any of our takes. And of course, if you liked what you saw in the video, please leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, then hit that subscribe button, and we will see you guys next time. Challenger TCG now has a Metafy. Wow. If you would like to support our content so we can continue doing what we are doing, then please consider subscribing to any of our Metafy tiers. Not only will you be supporting more content like this, but you will also gain access to our community Discord, where we do live streams, Riftbound product giveaways, host VODs of our competitive testing sessions, and offer one-on-one coaching sessions. The members of our team are seasoned veterans of the competitive TCG world and have seen multiple successes across a variety of games. We also have written deck guide content available for free right now, and will be providing additional guides at no cost in the future. So check us out, even if you can't subscribe if you are looking for high quality competitive content.